And right now, I don't know, can't see out there, but hopefully you have students with you. And if you do, please ask them about, as we go through these, whether or not these expectations that we're presenting are part of what they're doing, and how to improve what is going on in the school based on these expectations. And I'm going to bring Johnny on in a minute or so. We're going to talk about these in relation to Johnny, and I want you, there he is right now, he's getting on the screen. There's a picture of Johnny from a slide, but I want you all to really think about questions that you want to ask us, and we don't mind being interrupted here. So if you have a question through the chat, please let us know, and we'll take that question as it comes up. Then at the end, we have plenty of time for questions as well. So Johnny, are you on the screen yet? Are we going to get Johnny up there?
Hold on.
There he is.
Hey.
How you doing, Johnny?
Doing good. How are you, Elliot?
I'm good. I'm good. Can you tell people about yourself a little bit? Your history with school, how you got to the Met, and you heard a little bit about these expectations. Now we're going to run through them, and I'm going to ask you some questions about them. Okay?
Okay.
So talk about yourself a little bit. Tell people who you are.
I'm Johnny Ramos. I'm a senior at the Met School in Providence. I've been at the Met for 4 years, and yeah. Is there anything else you want to know?
Oh yeah. What are your interests, Johnny? What are you doing right now for your LTI, and where are you headed? Your goals, those kinds of things, right? Get people started.
So I'm interested in health, and I really enjoy like bicycles and bicycle advocacy. But I'm also studying for nursing, and I just got my certified nursing assistant license not too long ago. And my internship is at a nursing home at Capitol Ridge in Providence, and I help run activities and like read the newspaper to the elderly, and like other activities like bingo or like blackjack and games that they enjoy playing. And I'm also soon going to be an employee at my internship since I got my CNA license.
You got your CNA license already?
Yep.
And you're a senior in high school?
Yep.
Is that unusual?
That is unusual. Usually people get their CNA license after they graduate, or if they don't graduate at all sometimes.
Right. Well, remember we talked about getting pegged to real-world standards. You think that motivated you and engaged you to get through school, so it wasn't boring?
Yeah, the classes were a lot of fun. My peers weren't like the people I see every day in my advisory. It was adults who are also learning how to become CNAs, who like this is going to be their career and what they really enjoy to do. And I'm going to be I learn alongside these adults who are making the same steps forward as me. I'm just doing it a little earlier.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about, Johnny, about your relationship with your advisor and some of the students in the school, and what that feels like, and how you stay engaged and motivated to finish up and to really challenge yourself in school at the Met? Who's your advisor?
So my advisor is Caitlin O'Neill. She is great. And our relationship is really good. I enjoy the way she manages the advisory, not only just me. She can be a little strict, but she gives us leeway to like fail and do things over, make sure that we're doing it to our best ability, but at the same time like making sure that we're doing what we're doing, making sure we're not goofing around, but also letting us have fun and do our work at the same time.
So she knows you, your interests, your family, your mentors, right?
Even outside of school, like we're always in contact. So if I'm at home and I'm doing some work, I can shoot it to her her way at like 9 o'clock. She does not mind at all. She'll get back to me as soon as she can. Or if something has happened outside of school, my sister and her are text back and forth to make sure that I'm okay. Or calling my mom to make sure that I really am home. It's not like the person at the front desk calling my parents, seeing if I'm home or not. It's my advisor, like actually calling my parents.
I mean, a real person,
Yep, a real person.
not a voice or one of those things that I get nuts with when I get a please stay on hold, right? None of that stuff. So that kind of, I'm just going to interrupt for that kind of vectoring, that kind of braiding, however you want to talk the technical way, vectoring or braiding, it's triangulated, it's quadruplicated, if you will, where an advisor, somebody from the school, knows the people outside that Johnny's connected with around his real world learning, that knows his family, and everybody knowing everybody to make sure that Johnny stays engaged and every student stays engaged. And those kinds of relationships are lifelong. And we have data around that through our longitudinal study. We've conducted a study of our students 14 years out now, and we found that students who are in the workforce, who have graduated 2- and 4-year schools, that 70% of them, over 70%, have work from their LTIs, their learning through internship interests at our schools, all of our schools all over the United States, because they had the academic skills, because they had the 21st century skills, because they had the social emotional learning skills, and also because they built social capital. They built relationships to the people that they met when they were mentors. Do you have good mentors through your med experience, Johnny, outside of school?
So like work-related stuff outside or like through internships?
Through internships and work-related too. Yeah, you could talk about both, sure.
Um, I'll start with internships, I presume. So freshman year, I had two mentors, and they're really good. And I was teaching theater, but then with children, and I decided that I don't really like children, so I moved on from that. But I could still keep in contact with them. Through them, I got volunteer experience with the Man Avenue Project, and I got to help children like write plays and have adults perform them. And now I know people from like the Man Avenue Project, like Meg, Matt, and people where I got a job from at the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council because she had a connection with them, and through them I met people from Recycle a Bike and like people like Ryan, who is now my boss at a bike shop, and like every single year I've gotten even more and more and more like mentors, even mentors who are not from my internship. I have a quantitative reasoning teacher here, which is just math. And on my way, I'm a big cyclist, and he supports this a lot. And on my way from like my 45-minute ride to going home from school, because I live in Pawtucket and the school is in Providence, and I bike all the way of it. So when I'm on my way home, he doesn't mind if I just stop by, get a drink, or even like have dinner with his family. And he helps me meet other people who are also cyclists. And eventually, in my junior year, when I started interning at Capitol Ridge, which is the assisted living facility that I intern at now, and I got to meet people who, like, I got to meet nurses, I got to meet CNAs, I got to actually speak to these people, and they gave me guidance. They told me like some steps that I can take moving forward, how to become a CNA, what to do for college, what colleges are good, what colleges are looking for, and like every single year I just met more and more people that brought in the things I know.
That's great. And once again, I'm listening to Johnny say those things. We didn't prepare for this in that way. I didn't know what he was going to say. But when you hear him talk, you hear about the choices that he's making. You hear about the relationships. They're all connected. All the 10 expectations are almost in what he was talking about, that he's being challenged, that as one of our students early on said, students don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that QR math teacher, quantitative reasoning specialist, as we call them at the Met, who took the time to do the bike ride with Johnny, that's all part of it. You can't pull apart relationships and content area, subject matter. You've got to put them all together. And that's what this is all about. That's how Johnny's expectations of school are being met, and how relevant it is for him that everything is, and so much is focused around his interests. Not everything is, but so much is, and the choices that he's making. Can you talk for a second, and we'll get to choice for a minute. Can you talk for a minute or two, Johnny, about, did you have any choices when you were at the school that you were at before the Met? What was it like? What were the choices that you had, if you had any? And what is it like now?
Uh, in middle school, because I've been at the Met for all 4 years, so I've been spoiled since I've been at the Met. So, but I had a really hard time in middle school. They my eighth grade year is when they implemented the E, which is like better than an F, but it's still passing. And
What do you mean? I thought E was excellent.
no, and
E is better than enough, but it's still passing. Okay, go ahead.
so and I was really into music, so I really enjoyed playing the piano, and I really enjoyed like I also enjoyed the trumpet, and I enjoyed theater. Those were about the only classes I was really worried about. And when I started excelling in a math class, that was a little too easy. They put me in a new one. But then with that, I also had to join a like a secondary math class for I forgot what it was for, but it was like to brush up on more. And that teacher took me out of her class because I was getting an F because I just couldn't understand any of the information. Everything was just drill and kill. It was like, okay, here's the information. Good luck trying to like grasp it. So one day she took me out of my classroom and she said, I'm gonna give you an E so you can pass, but music is not gonna take you anywhere. Theater is not gonna take you everywhere. You have to focus solely on your classes, and that's the way that you have to do it no matter what, and that's the only way to be successful. And that got me mad. I feel like
Ah,
it's
of course it did. Yeah, I mean, it's in. I'm listening to you, and up on the screen, it came up time. Do I determine the pace of my students' learning, or does the students determine the pace? And here you have a perfect example of, or a good example of, all of a sudden you put in this class, somebody thinks they want to accelerate you, then you're not doing well. I mean, they're controlling you, you're not controlling it and them. And it's the other way around. So of course, what happens? You get disengaged. You get lost. You go, what's going on here, right? I mean, so tell me about the Met and the difference in when you have the time and the choices that you make. Do people listen to your choices?
uh so my advisor Caitlin, she's never said no to anything I've ever wanted to do, even if it's like if it just seems like out of the blue. Like freshman year, I taught theater with an elementary school, and after that, I decided that I really dislike children. I don't have the patience. I don't have the drive to work with children. So she let me take my whatever. I got to learn a lot. She let me take my winnings and just move on, try something else. So my sophomore year, I got to try again. I started doing bicycle mechanics, and now I'm like a certified bicycle mechanic. I really enjoyed all this bicycle stuff. There was a community for it. There was like healthy lifestyle and eating right, and that really started becoming interesting to me too. So then I started getting into uh, like health, and that was like kind of my segue to a healthy life, like trying to get other people to ride bikes, be healthy. But I also really enjoy working with people and just building, having people drop off their bikes and then building them and then giving back to them wasn't really what I want to do. So since I didn't enjoy working with children, I told my mentor that I wanted to work with the elderly, and she said, "All right, go for it." And I got an internship with Capital Ridge, and I've been there the whole time, and I love it so much. Um, I took about 3 or 4 months not going to my internship this year to do my certified nursing assistance program. And there's nothing better than the feeling of the people you worked with still remembering you after a whole summer plus 3 months and still being appreciative of all the things you've done for them. And that's
Right.
what makes me motivated to keep going to my internship every day. I'm really
So
passionate about it.
once again, you hear how these braid into one another. You're allowed to make mistakes, or if you do make mistakes, you learn from them, and there's an adult relationship around that. It's not like you're out there on your own, you feel isolated, and that you do have the time to practice, to play, to make those mistakes, to make corrections, and your career and your interests connect. And when they change, or as you go through your path, your own personal pathway, from biking to nursing, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. It's just natural and normal. And the way you engage students like that, all of us, and the way they're going to learn is that whether we do it in school or not. And that can turn into great positives or some awful negatives when students go down their own personal paths. And we're trying to do, all of us, is to make sure that those relationships and the engagement they get is productive learning, positive, good for the community, good for themselves, and good for the world at large. So, Johnny, this has been a great little talk here. I know that Chris has to come on, and he's going to run people through the app. So I want to make sure that we have time to do that, and then I want to make sure that people have time to ask us questions. And somebody said, I've got a follow-up question.
That was
so
me.
If you write it to us.
That was me. That was me, Elliot.
Oh, that was Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, you got.
Actually, I wanted to ask a question on behalf of one of our attendees. You asked this good question about what Johnny's experience was before he came to the Met, and what it is now. Can either of you reflect on whether you actually see these expectations embedded in curriculum, and also even testing, in other places and in big picture schools? Do these things actually show up in the work?
The 10 expectations show up in the work of
curriculum and testing.
Oh yeah. I mean, you want me to start? You want to start, Johnny?
I'm confused. Is it for like the Met school or like traditional schools?
Pick one. How about Johnny? You talk about the Met, and Ellie, you can talk about whether you think it actually happens in other places.
Sure. So, can you run the question by me one more time? Sorry.
Yeah. Do you believe? So we're talking about the 10 expectations. Do you actually see these things every day in the classroom? Do you see it in the way that the Met asks you to illustrate your expertise, your competency?
I see it all the time. The reason why I'm doing this is because people like Chris have noticed that I'm pretty decent at public speaking. Even people who are not my advisors see, oh, he is very interested. He's driven by speaking in public. Let's put him in competitions. Let's make him go out there and talk. And with the nursing, there's nobody telling me that I can't do it. So what I'm expecting is that I have support from every single person inside of not only just my building, but the entire school. So from my building to, which is Justice, and there's like 5 buildings, to like Peachtree, which is on the other side. And I expect that those teachers are going to be like helping me learn more about nursing, make sure that I get the support that I need, making sure that it's fun. If a place is not interesting enough for me, and there's nobody in my building that can tell me what might spark my interest more, I can go to another building or another school and see what other people know about. So I can go into different places. And anything I'm interested in is going to be relevant, authentic. Things are going to be real for me. The biggest thing that I really enjoy about the Met and like just big picture schools is the projects. So, and even like small things. My first year at my internship, I noticed that around the Christmas times, there was not a lot of people getting visited in the nursing home. So I got my building together and we all wrote like Christmas cards. And I want to say we wrote about 130 cards altogether as a building. And I got to pass these around to every single resident inside the building. And it's just like the great support and everything.
So Elliot, this is a loaded question for you. Do you see the 10 expectations in, I would say, more traditional public schools in the way that they teach and the way that they assess?
So well, you can, and that's, I guess, the point of having the 10 Expectations engagement app is that all of us can get better. And, and we need some tools to get better at what we're doing to make sure that students are highly motivated and engaged in school. And so the kinds of choices and the listening and the trust that you have with each and every student is what's important. So unless you ask these questions to students individually, like how is Johnny going to get from bicycle technician to CNA? Doesn't seem like it makes any sense, and yet the way he explained it made perfect sense. And so if you get caught up in a pathway that you made a choice around, but it really you're changing all the time, and you're figuring out a personal pathway, how those things connect. Unless you have more realistic choices, unless the timing is right, unless it's not just a sequence, but you can do your personal sequence. And how do you get to do those things more? How do you make sure that somebody at the school really knows you, knows your family, knows your mentors? If you know a student, all right, there's a relationship there. How well do you know them? How well do you know their family? How do you know what's going on in their social and emotional growth managed outside of school, at an internship or a workplace, at the family? It's all connected. And if you don't look at the whole picture more and more and more and better and better and better, things can fall apart at any place. And so that's why, and these aren't the only expectations that students have of us, but these were the 10 that Charlie and I decided were very, very important and could really help people keep students motivated in any school and engaged in any school or outside of school organization and activity. So that's kind of a quick response to your question. Yeah, students have choice. I remember Grace coming over to me saying, I dropped out of high school, Elliot, came to the Met. I said, why? She said, because I wanted to take Spanish, and she was a fluent Spanish speaker, and all they gave me was French. So she left. It sounds silly, and it's not, and it really is an example of the straw that broke the camel's back, because I could bet that if I talked to Grace, there would be 10 other things that made her leave school.
Mm.
And it's all those things put together. It's never just one thing why students become disengaged. Something happens at home. Something happens in school. Something happens with their friends. They get a flat tire. Everybody gets their mind, even adults, thrown off and out of kilter. And it's the relationships and the connections and the motivations that have been built that keep people moving forward. So that is my response to your question. Always, all of us have to get better. And we strive to do the same thing at all of our schools.